Hello, friends. How are you doing? My name is Joyce Ozeh, and I want to welcome you to Cultivate Your Mental Wealth. On this show, we go from places from mental illness to mental wellness, but it doesn't stop at wellness for us. We believe in living life in the overflow and living in abundance. And that's what I mean by mental wealth. So let's get to a place where we can live in wellness and abundance for ourselves and for our communities. Before we go on, I do want to say that I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. Please bear with me. Honestly, my producers don't know this. I thought long and hard about whether I should just cancel the show tonight, but the thought of not continuing this conversation and not seeing y'all for our end of the year wrap up after everything that we've journeyed through this year kind of broke my heart. So I talked to my husband and I said, okay, we're going to do this. And I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm so happy to be in this space. And I thank you for all of your grace in advance. So let's talk about what you can expect for today's show. I want to first know where y'all are tuning in from. Sherry, I love it. You're already dropping it. Hello from Brooklyn. Let me know where you all are also tuning in from. I'd love to know where y'all are watching the show from. I also want to talk about setting intentions and preparing for the new year. Then we can talk about what's to come and what we can expect in the new year with the show. And then practical pushes so that we're not just on the show talking, but we're also able to practically apply what we've discussed. Okay, that's what you can expect. I also want to do an audience check-in. So I see, thank you so much, Sherry, for wishing me well. I will sleep after this, but it's good to be with y'all. I really do mean that. Katrina from New Orleans, that's actually one of my favorite cities in the world. So good to hear from you. Gina Perry from Atlanta. Oh, via New York. You're in two major cities. That's really awesome. Thank you for joining. I will be monitoring the chat. I'm really good at multitasking. So continue to let the comments flow and I'll look out for them. And for those of you who may be a little bit shy, who don't want to necessarily come out and say something in the chat, I want you to know that on the show, we actually have an email, and that is comethrive247@gmail.com. That's comethrive247@gmail.com. You can use this to connect with me intimately. I will help you navigate all of your questions surrounding mental health, how to live in the workplace as someone experiencing mental health, how to navigate mental health with your relationships, with your family members. Like I've said before, someone reached out to me recently and we were able to plan an entire employment rights conference all about mental health in the workplace for free on one session, one call, because she connected to me one-on-one. Again, this offer is only available to you, my virtual family. So please, please take advantage. Okay, before we go into the main segment and discussion for today, I like to do what we've come to term here as setting the room. It's been a long day, I'm sure. The holidays for many of us is around the corner. There are a lot of things competing for our time, and there are a lot of things competing for our mental health and our peace of mind. But here in this space, we get to slow down. You are among friends. You are not judged by your story or your experiences surrounding mental health. You are not judged by your questions or your concerns. You are free in this space. You are seen in this space, and you are so supported. Thank you for joining. So now that we've set the room, let's talk. Let's thrive. As I mentioned, this is part 2 of our series. How many of you were able to join for part 1 2 weeks ago? I kind of called that the year in review. And that is to say, we're talking about the new year, a lot of feelings surrounding the new year. Feel free to drop in the comments. Are you one of those people who looks forward to setting resolutions and having a fresh, clean slate? Or are you one of those people who hears new year and kind of like grimace and think, ugh, here we go. All those annoying people trying to make goals, trying to better themselves when nothing ever changed. Or maybe you're even down on yourself for the things that you weren't able to change this year. Let me know where you're at so we can figure out how to navigate this process. But where you're at in this whole New Year's resolution and ideology does not have to be where you remain. And for part one, we talked about before we even look forward to the new year and all of the things that we want to experience and the ways that we want to grow, you can't grow unless you're also able to reflect on where you've been, what you've been through, and most importantly, what you've been able to overcome. How easy it is to look at the resolutions that fell short, but how often do you spend time thinking about all of the things that you were able to overcome despite the challenges you faced? And the reason why that reflection, like we talked about, is so important because you need a kind of momentum. You need to build energy as you shift focus from what has happened onto what's possible in the new year. So if you haven't seen part one, you can still watch part two, but I encourage you to go back to part one, think about the ways to reflect, and do that before you get into this part two. And that is setting intentions for the new year. I already see people talking about how reflection helps people decide what to keep and what to let go of and what to adjust. I love that. That's exactly right. Reflection causes us to take inventory and stock of where we're going so that we can continue to stay on course for the things that we desire in our lives. But for those of you who still really aren't sold on this whole idea of resolutions and newness and all of these nice buzzwords that we see on social media or amongst our community, I want to challenge you. If you're not one of those resolutions people, I want to challenge you to redefine resolutions. What do I mean by that? I want you to shift your focus from what traditional resolutions look like. And I want you to set resolutions or goals for yourselves, desire for yourselves that are more holistic and meaningful. I want you to try and prioritize mental and emotional wellness. Why shift focus? Because when we focus on the process and not just the outcomes, we are actually more likely to be more successful in where we want to be or where we want to end up. I know y'all have heard the phrase over and over again, just enjoy the journey. Life isn't about the destination, it's about the journey. Let me know in the comments if you've heard that phrase before. Also, let me know in the comments if you've rolled your eyes when you've heard that phrase before. It's about the journey and not the destination. But what does it mean to focus on the journey and why? How? You focus on the journey by setting resolutions that value personal growth, learning, and experiences over rigid outcomes. What's an example of that? How many of y'all have talked about, this is the year that I lose 20 pounds. This is the year that I go to the gym and I lose all of this weight. This is a new year, new me, 20 pounds, that's the goal. And by February, your gym shoes are already gathering dust and you haven't been to the gym, let alone on the track outside, in months. Studies have actually shown that by, I think, about February, majority of people, around 60 to 70% of people, have already failed at their resolutions. So does that mean then that it is wrong to set a goal of wanting to lose 20 pounds? Not necessarily. There's nothing inherently wrong about that. But when we're talking about a process-focused resolution and redefining traditional ways of setting resolutions so that they actually work for us, instead of talking about losing 20 pounds, How about focusing on incorporating healthier habits into your daily routine? Incorporating new foods, planning to park farther away from the Target so that you're forced to walk a little bit, taking the stairs more often than you take the elevator. The reason I like to focus on process rather than outcomes is because the focus on process actually gets us to our desired outcomes. When we are too rigid and too inflexible, we often get discouraged when we don't meet that really technical, constricted standard that we've set out for ourselves. But process is more breathable. It allows you to adapt and be flexible. And I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but I can't emphasize enough how important the journey is, not just because it's a cute saying, but because change happens in the journey, not the outcome. Change happens as you're getting to where you want to go. And that is why it's important to focus on the process. I also want us to think about how we can set sustainable goals. Your goals should be realistic, measurable, and achievable. And in those realistic, measurable goals, as in goals that you can really see, hey, am I getting to where I want to be? You must also practice self-compassion and flexibility like we talked about. There's so much going on in conversation, and I want to pause right now because y'all are saying some really great things. Mignon Porter, you roll your eyes each time. I'm with you. I do the eye roll. I really don't like cliches. I like it when things sound good, but they're also practical. But I'm telling you, the process is important. The process is more practical than that rigid outcome. Goldie, I love what you're saying about setting goals. Setting goals is mental illness. I don't know that I agree to that. We'll get to how important being intentional about wellness is, as opposed to just setting goals that are vague and not specific and not measurable. So, in terms of goals that are realistic and achievable, while also balanced with self-compassion and flexible, is that possible? Is it possible to be flexible in your goal setting while also being realistic and setting achievable goals? I dare you. It is. It absolutely is. So, first, your goals should be specific and achievable. And specific does not have to have a number like we were talking about. I must lose 20 pounds before June, or I must get into bikini shape and lose 50 pounds. Your goals can be specific, like healthier habits. And it could be, I'm only eating out once a week. All of the other food I want to eat during the week, I want them to be whole foods and I want them to be cooked at home so that I can better monitor my eating. Eating out once a week or twice a week as a goal is actually very specific. It just isn't tied to the number on the scale. Because again, if you are setting achievable, realistic goals, like monitoring how much processed food you're intaking, guess what? That's gonna affect the number you set or you see on the scale. You've just reshifted and changed your framework to set yourself up for success. Or let's say that your goal is to write a book. How many of y'all have been talking about writing that book for how many years? I know I've been talking about writing a book. It is not realistic to say, this year I want to write a book and sit back and just hope that inspiration comes to you. A specific and achievable goal for writing a book in a year could be, every month, I want to write at least one chapter of my book. Or every week, I want to dedicate at least 1 to 2 hours of writing every week. That reframing by focusing on the process gets you to that desired outcome. But what about making goals achievable and also balancing that with self-compassion? I'll tell you the truth. Even when I was talking about self-compassion, a part of me is like, But you don't want to go too easy on yourself, because if you're like self-compassionate and flexible with your goals, you'll never want to achieve them. That also is not necessarily true. Self-compassion with your goals can look like having goals that are clear and specific, yet being flexible enough to adapt to changing circumstances and your personal capacity. Say you want to learn a new skill. Say you want to learn how to play the piano. And in the beginning of the year, you were feeling very inspired and you're like, I'm going to practice playing the piano every other day of the week for 2 hours. Well, what happens when life happens? When your kid gets sick, or you have to work late hours, or you just can't get to it in the way that you had hoped. If you do not also mix self-compassion with your goal setting, you will find that you get really discouraged and really self-critical. How many of you guys can relate to that? I'm working on not being this way, but my natural proclivity is all or nothing. If I can't clean the whole house, I'm not cleaning the house. If it isn't all of it, then I'm not doing any of it. If I can't make it from scratch, I don't want to cook, because I tend to be very all or nothing. But what self-compassion looks like with specific goal setting is, from January to February, I was able to go to the gym 3 times a week. But now that my car broke down or I'm working later hours, I can only make it to the gym once or twice a week. And guess what? That's okay, because I've committed to giving myself grace and compassion and being flexible as my life circumstances change. Guess what this flexibility allows you to do? It allows you to keep your resolutions without shaming yourself. Because if you do the all or nothing approach and say it's either 3 times a week or I haven't met my resolutions, you are much more likely to drop that resolution altogether. And guess what? Something is better than nothing. Going to the gym once a week for 15, 30 minutes is better than not going at all, because you've shamed yourself into a corner because you're not doing it perfectly. This is what it means to be self-compassionate. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to your best friend. And I really promise you, shifting and balancing goal setting with that kind of grace will give you the more or the higher likelihood to stick with your goals this time around, because you're being flexible and you're being kind to yourself. Let's talk about planning for wellness. I want us to work on incorporating wellness into our daily lives. And that could be wellness in your everyday routine, like mindfulness, which could just be like spending 5 to 10 minutes in the beginning of your morning, not checking email, not checking Instagram, not going to your text messages, but being still. For me, that looks like prayer, and that looks like reading a scripture. For others, that could just look like closing your eyes and just being still, letting your mind and your body adjust. I promise you, this isn't like fluffy talk, like I like to say. Scientific studies actually show you that your morning routine can really set the course for your day. And having a routine and incorporating stillness in that routine is really impactful for your overall well-being. Wellness incorporation can also look like regularly self-reflecting. It doesn't have to be at the end of the year. But in my agenda, before I list what I have to do, I also must list what I'm grateful for. And that self-reflection each and every morning before I get to all of my emails and all of my phone calls really grounds me in what is important. Or journaling. Again, it doesn't have to be pages and pages. Stop and write a few sentences. It forces self-reflection. I want to be very clear with you. Wellness has to be intentional. No one stumbles into wellness. If you're struggling with your mental health, if you're struggling with peace of mind and navigating chaos, wellness doesn't happen to you. You happen upon it. You make the intentional decision to practice wellness, even when you don't feel like it. I like to call it taking a contradictory step. I was feeling extremely low last week. Like I mentioned, I'm a civil rights attorney. A lot of my work is really emotionally trying and exhausting. That is just the unglamorous truth about practicing civil rights. And there are times where I'm just going, and not thinking about how the work affects me. And when I don't intentionally slow down, guess what? My body slows down for me. And it was to the point that I was so low and feeling so heavy in my spirit that my boss called me to tell me that I had a raise. And I got off the phone and I just cried because I was overwhelmed by the news. I didn't think I deserved it. And I was just feeling low. But you know what I did? I called my husband and I said, we have to celebrate because I just got a raise. And he's like, Joyce, what's going on? You sound sad. And I said, I'm feeling sad. I'm experiencing depression, but I need to take a contradictory step to what my feelings are telling me and punctuate my life with celebration in this moment. You better believe that when I was ordering the sushi to celebrate, I wasn't feeling joy. I wasn't feeling happy. But because I know that wellness is intentional, I recognized what I was feeling. I didn't shame myself for what I was feeling. And then I gave myself permission to choose opposite of what I was feeling. I chose joy before I could even feel joy. And I'm not kidding you. The very next day, it felt like something had been lifted because I made that conscious, contradictory step. So again, wellness doesn't happen to you, you choose it. It's okay if you're not in the season to choose it if you're too exhausted. Try again another day. I want you to know that your feelings may say that you can't, but your intention for wellness should tell you, I deserve to try. Your feelings may say that I can't experience joy. You can recognize your feelings while also telling yourself, I deserve to try at joy. I deserve to give myself a try at peace. Try. Practice celebration despite your feelings. Take the contradictory step. That's part of incorporating wellness and being intentional about it. Also, build support systems. Again, you got to be intentional about your community, about your crew, about your tribe. I was very intentional this year. I've had to step back from relationships that I didn't think were benefiting my wellness or where I wanted to be. You can't bring everyone on your journey. Be intentional about seeking mental health therapy and seeking a professional psychiatrist or a therapist. Be intentional about connecting with people and connecting with your friends and loved ones. Your community, your family, your tribe, just like we're doing right here in this space, is built. So make space in your resolution to build that. That is what's going to sustain you as you improve and evolve in the new year. Also, adapt to change, like we were saying. Prioritize the journey, not because it sounds good, but because there's growth in the journey. There are outcomes in the journey. And be mindful of your words and your thought patterns while you are on the journey. It's okay to recognize your feelings, but don't you dare put a period where, I like to say, don't you dare put a period where God has put a comma. If you're in the middle of a really intense or challenging season, I'm not saying that you force yourself to act like it's not challenging, but reframing and being mindful of your words on the journey also says, it won't always feel like this. I won't always feel like this. This season cannot last forever. I have survived all of my worst days up until this point. I will survive this as well. That's how you honor your feelings, but move intentionally with your words and how you frame the journey. Stay grounded. The biggest restriction to human potential, I saw this quote today, is a fear of other people's opinions. You may be setting these lofty goals. I want to write a book. I want to move my body more. I want to start a podcast. And then you stop and tell yourself, but what are they going to think about me? What if I can't do it? What if they think that I'm a fraud, or all of these things? Do away with what people think about you. Be mindful of how you treat people, but that is the full extent that you should care about how people think about you. I only care what people think about me as it relates to how I treat people. But I do not give space to care about how people think that I should dress, how I should talk, how I should show up in the world, how I should do my hair. Staying grounded means letting go of the restrictions that limit your potential as a human. Stay grounded with your support and your community. Stay rooted in how you wish to evolve, and stay rooted in the unwavering truth that you can evolve. Change is possible. Believe that for yourself. I believe it for you. I believe it with you. And as we're wrapping up the conversation, at least this part of it, I want you to stay hopeful. I want you to foster optimism. Instead of shunning the new year or being overwhelmed by it, choose to embrace it. Remember, our feelings may often be contradictory to the steps that we want to take to evolve and improve. I'll do you one better. Our feelings are almost always contradictory to the steps that we want to take to evolve and improve. Gently push past those feelings. Embrace a positive outlook despite what you're going through. Do what you can when you can and just practice that embrace. Also, your life should be punctuated with celebration. Your life should be punctuated with joy. I don't care if you ate vegetables one day a week. Celebrate that, you know what? You ate vegetables this week when normally you wouldn't have. You got to work on time when normally you're late. You were able to wake up early when normally you sleep in. Before you think about the next thing to do, punctuate your life with praise. Punctuate your life with joy. That momentum isn't just a feel-good thing. It will carry you through as you navigate your resolutions. So I want to check in with y'all. Yes, self-compassion, Sherry, it's so important. You deserve to try. Folks talking about how it's important to reframe in this time. I agree. Also, continue to let me know what you're looking forward to doing in this new year, what you're looking forward to trying. I promise to circle back and respond to all of your comments. And again, if you want to be less public and more private, feel free to email us at comethrive247@gmail.com. That is comethrive247@gmail.com. What you can expect next time, come January, is our new year, same push towards wellness. We will be joining or having more discussions on how to navigate your plans and check in on how you're doing with your plans. I also want to thank you for being a part of this conversation and the series for this entire year. It has been so wonderful to be with you all, but this is not goodbye just yet. We're at my favorite part of the series, and that's where we practically apply what we've talked about in our practical pushes towards wellness. So stay tuned. Hi, friends. This is our practical pushes towards wellness. Again, incorporating some of the things we discussed and how you can apply them so that this discussion doesn't end here. I have 5 things for you. First, practical push for the new year. Consider creating a vision board. And a vision board can be a huge poster. It could be an 8 by 11 inch paper, just something that will allow you to visually see your goals throughout the year. Let me tell you something. When you focus on images, they become clearer than your doubts. I remember when I was quite single, a professional Black woman, everyone was telling me that my odds for marriage were really low. But on my vision board, I had the image of a beautiful Black couple. And I meditated and prayed about that image to the point where my doubts were not more clear than the image of the future that I wanted for myself was. Same thing can happen with your goals and your resolutions. A vision board allows us to meditate, to quiet our doubts, and to make the image for what we hope for clear. Also, consider a wellness plan. Again, wellness doesn't happen to you, you happen upon it. Be intentional. Create personal wellness that includes strategies for how you're going to manage stress, when you're going to take time during the week to relax, how you're going to incorporate self care, even when you don't feel like it, when you're going to reach out and connect to a therapist. Be intentional about that wellness plan. Number 3, gratitude practice. I'm telling you, every single morning, I think about at least one thing that I am grateful for. Even when I'm not feeling grateful, even when I'm just feeling tired or moody or like I need more caffeine. Practicing gratitude and starting with gratitude gives you an appreciative mindset, and it truly sets the tone for the rest of your day, which will set the tone for the rest of your year. Number 4, try writing a letter to your future self for this new year. What I want this to look like, and I'll join you in this, I promise. Outline your hopes, your dreams, and your intentions for this year. Seal it up and open it at the end of the year. Again, these hopes don't need to be as rigid as I want to lose 50 pounds or I want to read 77 books, but I hope to incorporate more healthy habits, or I hope to spend at least 1 hour a week reading or writing or being creative or seeing friends. Outline it with a process-focused mindset and seal it so that you can see how far you've come by the end of the year. Lastly, I want you to commit to connect. As an introvert, I know how hard it is to connect with the people that you really love. But I'm telling you, you cannot do this thing alone. You cannot meet your goals or your dreams. Impact and change happens in community. So connect, have regular check-ins with your friends, set regular check-ins with your therapist and with your accountability and support systems. This helps you foster supportive relationships when you feel down and out and you can't do it for yourself. On that note, I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate, and a very happy new year. It's been so lovely to be here with you all year round, and I look forward to hearing from you some more. Wellness is for us. Wellness is possible. On that note, go thrive. You deserve it.